Hey everybody, Ed here with the Digital Digest, and today I wanted to share a quick comparison between the Sony Alpha A6000 on the left and the NEX-6 on the right. Now the A6000 is the successor to the NEX-6. The 6 was, in my opinion, one of the best mirrorless interchangeable lens cameras based around an aps-c class sensor ever made. So you got a 16 megapixel sensor. It also was Sony's first NEX camera to integrate Wi-Fi capability with access to their Play Memory application store, which gives you a bevy of different applications to expand the capability of your camera, as well as your creative options when it comes to taking stills, among other things. So post-processing, a wide variety of stuff. Basically, I have the marketing in front of both of these cameras just for reference, but again, $650 for the body, $800 for the kit with this Pancake kit zoom lens, which is the exact same lens that launched with the NEX-6. This is the same lens you'll now find with many of Sony's Alpha cameras in this lineup. It's replaced the non-power zoom lens that they had originally launched with the NEX-3 that lived on up until the NEX-6 replacement. So this is a pretty good performer. I've mentioned in other videos, if you don't own any other E-mount glass, then this is a great place to start. It preserves the form factor of the camera, respectively, either of these, any of the actual NEX or Alpha branded cameras. And it still has very good performance for its size and price. Keep in mind this is only $150 more when you're picking it up in the kit. So very inexpensive, very compact, and with its image stabilization, very versatile for video as well. But far from perfect, clearly. If you own E-mount glass, then you don't need that. But when it comes to these bodies, we definitely gained some weight in the A6000, but a lower price point is already something to be welcomed. On the specifications, you can see the megapixel rating right there. I'll go in a little bit tighter. 16.1 megapixels on the NEX-6, 24.3 on the A6000. Both are the same size aps-c sensor class, which is what is commonly found in digital SLRs that are not full frame, of course. That's another class size of sensor, giving you different advantages inherently, as well as, it's a different trade-off, low light performance things. Not getting into that now. The actual ISO, the exact same rating here, 25,600 is the peak for both of these, and there's a reason. Sony is not trying to just bump up specifications that are not going to be tangible, real world results. And that's not to say you ever want to shoot at that speed, but you can if you really want to. But what's really impressive here, and you'll notice it's not here, is that we've got 11 frames per second continuous autofocus. Even though both cameras have that exact same fast hybrid autofocus logo, because both cameras do have phase as well as contrast autofocus systems in place on the chip, on the sensor, they do not have the speed in common. So the NEX-6 was Sony's first attempt at bringing the same speed that most digital SLRs have to this incredibly small form factor that so many people loved. The NEX-7 did not benefit from that, but cameras like the NEX-5R, a less expensive model with an articulating screen but no OLED viewfinder, that camera also did benefit from the hybrid autofocus system. But clearly that left something to be desired, and in comes the A6000. Now, the A6000 combines that new faster autofocus system with the fact that you're benefiting from the higher megapixel count, which many of you may be worried is going to end up yielding inferior low light performance, simply because you're just cramming more megapixels into the exact same size sensor. After all, you're literally looking at the sensors now, and they are exactly the same size. But I can tell you in my use that this is not a compromise. The issues that some encountered with the NEX-7 have been rectified. I'm not going to get into those, but overall, low light performance with the A6000 is great. In terms of profile, the cameras have remained almost, I won't say exactly the same. You can see the A6000 is thicker. I've talked about the weight gain. It's apparent. And that's because the actual frame of the camera is now along the exact same lines of the A7 and A7R, because that is the new backbone of the E-mount class of cameras, at least when it comes to Sony's mirrorless business, at least in my eye, based on what I've seen and used. This older design, which was there for the 5N, and then the NEX-6 was kind of that in-betweener between the NEX-7 and 5N, so it kind of brought together the build of each in different ways, a little bit of a Frankenstein. Well, now with the A6000 we have that. We have a little bit of the remnants of the NEX look and feel, the form factor, most importantly, as well as the handling, but now blended with the A7, A7R, A7S body style, more so in my opinion, but still significantly smaller and not as high-end, clearly, because it is in a different price class, and different performance is expected as well. In terms of what you see, though, going right to left, exactly the same. I mean, OLED viewfinder, branding, exactly the same. But the OLED viewfinder here has a lower number of dots, essentially. So some people will be upset that the resolution has been downgraded from the NEX-6, but part of this is Sony's maturation and also marketing and understanding what people are really looking for. And keep in mind, the NEX-6 was a significantly more expensive camera at launch. If I have not mentioned, this pairing, which is how it did launch, was $899 when it launched. So this is a full $100 less, with basically an upgrade from just about every perceivable perspective, other than the fact that the OLED viewfinder has been downgraded. But in real world use, no compromise, at least in my experience thus far. Then you've got the multi-interface shoe. You can attach an external microphone, flash, XLR adapter if you're frisky, whatever you want pretty much that is compatible, and then do things with third-party adapters as well. Your pop-out flash, a little bit more flexible in the A6000 than the NEX-6, and it's just a matter of design. And then here we still have two dials. One, the traditional mode dial. You can see it on top here on the NEX-6. And then the A6000 borrows some of the tri-nav design from the NEX-7, but not in terms of functionality, just in terms of form. So they basically took the stack design and gave us side-by-side instead. And I actually like this much better. It's far more practical for your right thumb to work with than trying to switch between these two dials that are on top of each other. So much easier to work with, a clear improvement, in my opinion, in the design of the camera. When you look at the front here of the camera in terms of the power and shutter button, another design change, clearly. I mean, I'm going to start to pick these up to get a very close view for all of you, so you can really see exactly what I'm talking about. But the power buttons, a clear change. I mean, we're looking at, forget the actual color, but the actual button itself has changed. They're going for more of that cable release look than a traditional shutter button. Also, the silver plastic, this is almost a tighter metallic feel, frankly, on the A6000, even though it is still plastic to my knowledge. The function button and the has been relocated. The function button is now on the back of the A6000 rather than, as you see it right there, on the NEX-6 on the front next to the shutter. Now that's a programmable, customizable button, as you can see right there. So they've changed some of the buttons. They've been moved around. And again, this all probably, if I had to bet, has to do with marketing and feedback and what they've heard from people like you and me, as well as just about everyone else out there when it comes to what people would like to see change on the bodies and the layout and what was actually feasible, practical. Another view I want to give you without breaking anything, hopefully, is the actual grip and how that's changed. Let's get the marketing out of the way. You can see side by side, the grip clearly has changed, and for better, in my opinion. The placement of the video record button also clearly changed. On the NEX-6, it was more front-facing to the actual back of the body. Now it's clearly more defined as being on the side of the camera, which I actually think is better. This in-betweener design I was not in love with. It was like it was a flip decision by Sony to try to pacify people that were inadvertently hitting the record button, which wasn't a problem I had, so I didn't really like the adjustment. But here we have that compromise they should have done to begin with, which is just basically stick it on the side of the body, so it's clearly defined rather than in between, and probably just a different kind of problem, which is what I think the record button on the NEX-6 represented. But in terms of the back sides of the cameras, things also a little bit different. The screens pretty much the same. We are working with pretty much the exact same 3-inch display, but now we've got a different button layout. You can see on the NEX-6 on the right, the 2 programmable buttons around the dial there, and then the dial with the center select button. This is how you navigate menus on both cameras. Has its predefined functions. Same thing on the other camera, the A6000 that I'm bringing into frame, but the A6000 now ditches those 2 programmable buttons for actual other features like play, which on the NEX-6 you can see the playback button is right next to the flash button. So that's at the top of the camera. They obviously did their homework and realized it's easier, I guess, to hit a play button that's down on the bottom of the body rather than on the top. So now that's been relocated. They've exchanged that. The function button also relocated. You can see it's right there above the display predefined set on the dial that I mentioned earlier. Function, as I showed all of you, is on the NEX-6 literally next to the shutter button. But all of those are programmable buttons. Just a lot more programming really can be done and customization with this camera than the NEX-6. And of course, it's not a perfect device. Some people will have complaints. Even the electronic viewfinder, besides dropping resolution, has physically changed in terms of the way it protrudes from the camera. It actually extends out more, which is perplexing considering the A6000 is a larger camera than the NEX-6 to begin with. So, I mean, that rounds out what you need to know about the body. The build quality materials, I can tell you also that the A6000 favors more plastic, although there is talk of magnesium alloy in there. The NEX-6 definitely does come from an older generation where Sony was, in my opinion, investing more in build quality rather than the feature set that clearly has become the most important thing here, you know, delivering on performance, feature set, and getting that all at a low price point. So I'm not saying that they've made a trade-off that is bad for the consumer, because in my opinion, this still has a great feel, quality feel, and just has performance to match, which the NEX-6 had that performance feel, and it just lacked a lot of what the 6000 now has to offer in that autofocus speed, as well as overall performance, low light, regular conditions, and the added megapixels. I don't think anyone would turn away. Unless it comes down to price point, which the NEX-6 of course inherently has a tremendous advantage because it's heavily discounted now since it is discontinued. But the 6000 isn't that expensive at launch, so with time you will see that go down in price as well. So very similar in terms of build, but I do, as I've continued to say, think the A6000 lends itself more to the A7 and A7R. It's frankly part of the transition of abandoning what once was the NEX brand, was also to, in some form, abandon the design. So they have kind of redone things from scratch, and that is a good thing. I really do believe, in my experience so far with this camera, the A6000 benefits from being more like the A7 and A7R, because the A7 and A7R were all products of the maturation of the NEX family to begin with. So you have to put all that into perspective, and then you see that this is really a step in the right direction in every shape and form. Not trying to be cute. So a lot to like here with the A6000. The NEX-6 is still a fantastic camera that is an incredible value, and really, if you don't need the extra megapixels and you don't need the autofocus speed, this still has everything other than the NFC and of course the Beyond X processor that really drives the A6000 to be the marvel that it is. And I'm not exaggerating, it really is, especially at its price. So that is a key difference, and that's part of why this camera has that autofocus advantage, as well as some other inherent advantages. But the biggest thing, in my opinion, really for the majority of hobbyists and amateurs is going to be the difference in software. And that's where, as soon as you boot these up, you know you're dealing with different cameras altogether. And that's because the menu system on one is unlike the other. So here we've got a menu system that is essentially what Sony's been doing standard now with all of their alpha cameras. So this is the traditional A-mount menu that has now made its way into CyberShots and of course here in the A6000, and it's because it works. It's simple. It doesn't remind you of a point-and-shoot experience. It reminds you of an interchangeable lens camera, which is what you're using. But the A6000, on the other hand, let me see, I don't think that camera has a battery. Let me pop it out of my 7R. Another nice thing, by the way, is the fact that you do have that ability to hot swap batteries among all of these cameras. They have stuck with the W series the whole way. And on that note, as I pop the battery in, same location, by the way, I do want to point out that the A6000 does have superior battery life to the NEX-6. So they've really improved on everything. I mean, there's not a thing other than, again, I will remind you of that viewfinder that hasn't been improved upon. So let me just power up the NEX-6. And as soon as I get it on here, bring up the menu system, and you will see, and both cameras, this does have Wi-Fi, by the way, even though it doesn't have NFC for that instant launch of the application system, which is definitely a nice thing to have. You can see right there, as I was mentioning, the assignable buttons. So essentially I had to hit that because it corresponded with on-screen. And this is where Sony's making it simpler. You know, I'm not going to say that's a learning curve because I didn't consider it, but clearly marketing must have shown them that it was. But now we're looking at what many would consider, you know, a pain in the butt. I mean, it's really a matter of personal preference. This is what Sony's interface looks like on their Handycam line as well. And they've been using it for a long time, and it's gotten by. But clearly they decided to make a change, and that's very obvious because as soon as you pick up the A6000, and I think this also does play into battery life, by the way, we've just got that black and white menu. No color icons, no pony show. Just exactly what you want. Quick access to your camera's features and functions so that you get the result you want. So that really rounds out the difference. You know, you've got higher megapixel count, faster autofocus, lower price, at least at launch, a little bit less on build quality, but in my opinion, an overall gain in terms of the redesign of the actual NEX body of the 6 moving to the 6000 with the alpha tag. Of course, NFC is an added benefit. Would I have liked to have seen GPS? Why not? I mean, it's incredible what they've stuffed into the body of the NEX-6, let alone the A6000 now. And they do, it seems Sony wants to move away from this being looked at as a point-and-shoot sort of camera, but with its price point, the fact that it actually falls into the same price range as the RX100 Mark II inherently means people are going to compare it to Sony's very own point-and-shoot cameras. And the irony here is that you've got the same menu system again. So it's kind of, you know, a circle here. It's not exactly the same, but very similar. And the idea is to keep that consistent performance across the board. And Sony's done a great job, but with this price point, they've got a winner. The question is, what exactly do you need? And when it comes to comparing the 6 to its successor, the 6000, I can say without hesitation, Sony has done just about everything right. I wish they would have, given us the same exact viewfinder, but if that got the price point down, there's no one that's going to complain, especially no one that's brand new to the lineup that doesn't even know that there was a higher res version, unless they've watched this video or any other that's actually discussed it. No line in for a microphone here. You're going to have to jump up to another class of camera with Sony. Basically, the ports are exactly the same. That's one area where things have not changed generation to generation. Whether you're looking at this camera, as I'm having trouble because I'm going where the pry point isn't, but essentially, as you can see right there, we've got access to our HDMI out and the multi-port, which is really just the micro USB for charging. You'll be charging the battery on board on both of these cameras. No charger comes included with any Sony camera, no matter the price point. If you want a dedicated charger, that is an additional accessory that you will have to purchase. Another cost-cutting move, but it's par for the course at this point. Not a big deal in my opinion, and micro USB is definitely a convenience in many ways, even though I don't like charging my battery on board, easily remedied by picking up an optional charger, third party or otherwise, if you are feeling lucky, I'll say. And basically the multi-port can also be used for things like remote trigger, as well as some other accessories, so that's why Sony dubs it a multi-port rather than just a actual USB port. Now in this camera it is just a USB port. You can see it right there. So another clear difference. I mean, even the finish of the body here, you've got that that molded look, that finish, granular, and here it's just the complete, it's not a polished, but it doesn't have any of that texture going on. So a matte finish, no texture. I personally prefer it. It looks more like the 7. That is where it does borrow more from the NEX-7 than the NEX-6. But this is where Sony consistently pulls the best things from what works and just tries to make an even better product, which is, in my opinion, a good thing for a consumer, especially when that better product ends up being less expensive. So if you're brand new to Sony, you're really benefiting. If you're talking about upgrading, I don't know, it's close. Do you need the extra autofocus speed? If you do, then it's a no-brainer. This is clearly a very good upgrade. The extra megapixels, it's close. 24 to 16 is an appreciable difference. I think that it is worthwhile, but if you don't crop, 16 megapixels is more than enough image image quality in general for just about any use you could think of. But I would definitely take the 24.3 over the 16 any day of the week. So if I had to pick, the A6000 is the winner, even with the lower res OLED viewfinder. It's still one of the best you're going to find out there. And the overall package here, the sum of its parts, is just one of the best cameras ever made, especially at that price of $650 for the body alone. So it's missing a few things. No camera's perfect. Both, by the way, and I didn't mention this, have the same articulating LCD screen. No range in motion has changed, but design has, again, because this thing really has been completely redesigned from what we had with the NEX-6. So I really do like the 6000 a lot. The NEX-6 still does hold its own, no question about it. It's got everything a modern camera should have, because it does have Wi-Fi and access to Sony's Play Memory Store. That is an equalizer. It also was the first camera to launch with this Pancake zoom lens, which means that if you own all of it right now, it's going to be really tough to justify. If this is all you use, the Pancake zoom and the NEX-6, it's going to be tough to justify spending money for this generation of camera. So it's really all a matter of what you need in your bag. If you're like me and you're deep in the system, you're going to appreciate the extra megapixels and that continuous autofocus. In fact, one of my favorite lenses right now to use with this is this bad boy right here, the 70 to 200 full frame G piece of glass, the FE lens. So I really get 300mm reach with that enhanced autofocus capability, something I don't have with my A7 or A7R. So that pretty much sums it up. Hope you all enjoyed the comparison. It really all comes down to, you know, what your budget is, and if you're budget minded, then the NEX-6 is clear away the better choice, because you're going to spend not half the amount, but you can pick it up now body only for, I would say, around $500 pretty easily. Open box, well, you know, explore what you can. The A6000 retails firm now, but with time, expect the price to drop. So $650, $800, a good starting point, especially when you look at the competition. I mean, Sony just continues to kill the competition with pricing and performance, that ratio, in my opinion. But it's just a matter of people are still convinced, brainwashed into believing glass doesn't exist for this system, and that just simply isn't the truth. Couldn't be farther from it. And also, you've got the ability to manually use with an adapter any lens on Earth. So there you have it when it comes to glass. But again, hope you all enjoyed the comparison. Any questions or comments, please feel free to post them. And of course, as usual, please feel free to subscribe. Later.